So I'm going to start basically with what was one of the major criticisms of the team last year. And that's not in particular anything having to do with the players themselves, but with the approach of the offense being criticized as archaic. Well, we know many times that when the fan bases get together and then a theme starts and then the group thing kicks in and they don't necessarily know the X's and O's. So I will throw it at you in regards to your analysis of Miami football on the offensive side, the approach, the sets, the scheme, whether it was more player breakdown or coaching and a schematic breakdown.
It's hard to say when you're outside the actual meeting room, but when you start to observe, like on my end from watching opponents. So I currently am an offensive coordinator. But early in my career, I always coached defense for the most part, defensive coordinator. And so I can look at it from both aspects. When you start to look at an offense, you're thinking, okay, well, what is difficult to plan for? It's either running one or two formations, but you have 10 or 12 very, very good plays from them, which some people ascribe to that methodology. Some people say we're going to run 2 or 3 plays, so that'd be more like a Clemson, and we're going to run them out of 5 or 6 different formations, 6 or 7 more motions and some window dressing type stuff. I would say that would be more of a Clemson model. You're getting counter tray, you're going to get maybe power, you're going to get inside zone, which they run it more like duo, and then you're going to get, what else? They run split zone. So you're going to get 4 main plays, but they're going to run them out of a ton of stuff. So with Mark Richt, it seemed like it was almost the worst of both ends as far as there's only a couple of formations and there was only a couple of plays. So I think that made it really easy to tee off on, to kind of game plan. If it's 1st and 10, they're going to run the ball. If it's 2nd and short, they're running it again. If it's 2nd and medium to long, they're throwing. Like you're able to tee off a little bit on what people are doing. Formation was really dictating play a lot of times. I mean, there's talent on the field. Offensive line, seemed poorly coached on top of seeming like maybe some of the athletic performance stuff wasn't being well taken care of. At times, guys, in certain positions, guys seem really fast, and in certain positions, guys seem really, really fat and out of shape. So it was, maybe not an entirely solid process from top to bottom, 100 guy.
Got Justin DeTavia on the line from Ironman Football, specifically breaking down Miami, but he keeps his eye obviously on Miami's opponents throughout the ACC and the nation. So when you look at Dan Enos, if he had a chance to look into his past and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, and the best part about Coach Enos is that it seems like he's changed and adapted, but also improved every quarterback situation he's had. So if you look at it now, he was willing to adapt himself at times, but also was able to get the best out of someone. So Jalen Hurts would be a perfect example, right? Not really known as that much of an accurate passer, maybe even known more of a runner. But Jalen Hurts' passing game when he had to come in was much improved. At the same time, Enos didn't run the same scheme he ran at Arkansas or at Central Michigan with Alabama. He took what he had on the field and got the most out of it and had Hurts up his game in the passing content while also still allowing him to run, swing draw and things like that are more mobile quarterback-based plays. Malik Rosier ran that in Miami. So I think that's the best part about him. He upped the level of the ability of the quarterback and the things they were good at. He masked some of the weaknesses with play calling. He masked some of the weaknesses by improving them, and definitely was more willing to adapt and change to the style that is going on wherever he is and the talent that's on the field. I think in Miami, he's going to wind up preying on the speed aspect of South Florida, whereas at Arkansas, you might have gone for bigger, stronger players. Definitely Central Michigan, you're looking at, Midwest, you're looking at bigger, stronger players. I like the idea that he'll run multiple tight ends, but he'll split some of them out. So he might have one in a wing, one out at slot. He might have them both in line. He might have them both in wing formations. He's doing a little bit of everything.
Got Justin DeTavier on the line from Ironman Football. You can also catch him on State of the U covering Miami, breaking down the tape for us and for you. When we look at football and people get excited about 48-45 games. I'm no longer excited about the 48-45 game because I'm pretty much of an old guy who's been watching football since the early 80s, late 70s. And when I saw a 48-45 game in 1985 or 1995, then I was excited because I like diversity. I like to see different styles of football. I like to see different styles of offense. And when there's a 48-45 game that's where the offensive execution is just so good, like you see in the NFL, where the quarterbacks are hitting tight windows, the wide receivers are out fighting the defensive backs for the ball, the scheme is just really good, and it's not poor defense, then I love it. When it's guys running free in the secondary constantly and it's just poor tackling or lack of a effort to tackle, then that's not fun to watch for me. And I like to see the 13-10 game mixed in with the 48-45 game. And I also now enjoy what was deemed a boring offense in the I formation with a fullback, with a traditional tight end, because everybody's running the same thing. Just kind of speak to, is there any advantage at this point to running a non-traditional offense? And we could go the Navy and previous Georgia Tech route as well in preparing for an opponent.
There definitely is some advantage if you're good at it. So if you're a coaching staff that really understands how to coach it, I would never run something to be like contrarian if it wasn't something I was good at. Like I really love the flex bone, but I don't think I could teach it. I just don't know enough about it. I wasn't an expert. So it was something I never did, even though I'm a really big fan of Navy and Paul Johnson and Coach Ken and what they do. It just wasn't for me. So I think when you have what you're good at, and you do something like that, yeah, it can be very deadly. Obviously, Georgia Tech won a couple of ACC championships, or at least one. Navy can have a lot of upsets. Army's upsetting people, winning 10 games. It can definitely work in the right situation. I think you can't force it. And, if you don't have 2 or 3 tight ends, if you're a really speed-based area in recruiting, it's not going to work. I mean, look at Wisconsin. It gets them to a point every year. They usually win 8, 9, 10 games, right? Like it's rare for them to slip under that 8-win window, because they're banking on what they do. Stanford is going the same way, right? They rarely slip under 8 wins. Even though in reality, if you looked at their recruiting base, they really shouldn't be able to be that successful, but they are, right? Sometimes they have really high recruiting class, sometimes they're really low. It just matters who the smart guys, if they're any good at football that year or not. But I think when you're really good at it, it really is beneficial for you to do what you do best. Patriots always, for the longest time, were 2, 3 tight end set, right? They won a couple of Super Bowls that way. They went away from it. They all of a sudden came back to it in the Super Bowl and in the AFC Championship game. Where it benefited them was they were going against defenses that were built to stop spread. So they were looking at smaller defensive backs, smaller linebackers, maybe a lack of having real defensive linemen in depth. So if you can wear a couple guys out with a couple of tight ends, you bang on those defensive ends who are used to pass rushing, you can take advantage of them and get a bigger body on a linebacker, and now you're beating him up too. So it really can benefit you. I think, like for instance with Miami, I think they're going to multiple tight end sets because they have 2 or 3 good tight ends. I think if you only have one, what's the point of coming out in 2 or 3 tight ends if it's a couple of walk-ons or a walk-on, some running back hybrid-y guy? Do it with what you've got. But yeah, I think there is a huge benefit to being the other team that you game plan for. And it's why Navy and Georgia Tech and stuff were so hard to go after, to play without a bye week, right? And now Army as well, because of what they do. It's very different. It's what made Florida or Utah, Baylor, what made them special for all those years when they were doing it and not everybody else understood it.